Donna said, I'm Barb Anderson with the Child Protection League. And I would like you to just pretend with me for a moment that you are 3 years old and you are excited about going to the library for story hour. You have been to the library before and you discovered that it was a very safe place with people that you could trust. As you sit down on the floor, a large, really tall woman wearing really, really high heels walks in front of you and the other children, swaying her hips and wearing a costume that does not cover much of her body. She is wearing lots and lots of makeup. She has sparkles all over her clothing and is wearing a tiara. What is she? A princess? She starts to read a story to you. Wait a minute. She has a man's voice. The story is confusing to you, and you become frightened. Welcome to the library-sponsored Drag Queen Story Hour. These events are spreading across the country and are confusing and corrupting the minds of little kids. Drag queens are grown men involved in the adult entertainment industry, and now through the local library are given access to little children ages 2 to 6 to read stories to them that teach that homosexuality, cross-dressing, and transgenderism are normal. What began in San Francisco in 2015 is now taking place in big cities and small towns all across America. Last October, drag queens were featured in 15 public libraries in the Twin Cities area, my hometown. These events during LGBT History Month in October are fast becoming a very aggressive outreach by gay activists to influence young, impressionable children to accept deviancy, even before they know what that means. Under the banner of diversity and inclusiveness, the level of evil and insanity that is aimed at young children is off the charts. Elementary children are at the age where their self-perception can be molded by a trusted adult or a teacher who reads gender seductive stories to them. Just one book has the ability to change a child's identity and a child's view of the world. It can touch a child's heart so deeply that it makes a permanent mark. Child therapist and clinical psychologist Chaim Janot once said that children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. These scary, hairy men are dressed up in sexually provocative clothing that often emphasizes their private parts, some in occultic-themed costumes with garish makeup that really makes a mockery of females. They are exaggerated, hypersexualized caricatures of women. These men are not given background checks. Some of them have turned out to be sex offenders, as the parents in Houston, Texas discovered. In the library, drag queens read gay and transgender-friendly books to toddlers and elementary kids. Books like My Princess Boy, Jacob's New Dress, and I Am Jazz, about a transgender girl. Wide-eyed children hang on every word that the drag queen reads to them, not knowing that what they are being fed is toxic, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. This is child abuse. The Child Protection League is exposing this evil, and parents are starting to take action. The next 2 photographs were taken by moms who attended the Drag Queen Story Hour to see for themselves what was going on. This is Gemini Valentine, who read to children at the local library in Hopkins, Minnesota. When drag queens change their outward identity, they take on a new name as well, and they choose their own outrageous costume. It is shocking to see how these men dress. As you can see, Gemini wore a skin-tight leotard which came to a deep V at his crotch. And here he is reading to the kids. When Gemini Valentine is not reading LGBT stories to little children, he can be found performing at the Gay 90s bar downtown Minneapolis. Here is the advertisement for his performance for adults called Drag Me to Hell. Drag Me to Hell, in this performance, he strips down to a tutu of black tulle, which he takes off piece by piece. The Diversity, Inclusion, Social Justice, and Equity Coordinator for Hennepin County Libraries, there you've got all the buzzwords, said that the performers feel empowered by reading to these children and doing their little stunts for them. Well, I don't care how the performers feel. I'm sure they feel empowered. I care about how these children feel and about the images that will make a permanent impression in their young minds. One parent who attended noted that some children were clearly troubled. One little boy kept moving away from the front row until he was back up against the farthest wall, reading a book all by himself. When it was over, many children were literally cringing and pulling away as their parents placed them on the lap of this drag queen, this creepy he-she man, so they could take a photo. Another drag queen that Child Protection League photographed is Sasha Soda. This is a provocative adult entertainer, and this was at the Ridgedale Public Library in Minnetonka. Sasha came walking in suggestively before the children and sat down in front of them, in front of preschool-age girls at eye level, revealing his nylon-covered crotch. He did this several times. When confronted about this later, Sasha said, "Oh, I was in such a hurry, I forgot to put the panties on over the nylons." Let's listen to a video clip from Alpha News reporting on these drag queen story hours.
Drag Queen Story Hour, which started as a small fringe phenomenon in San Francisco in 2015, is now sweeping the land. This is where parents bring their young children to a public library to be read to by a drag queen. The public libraries, of course, are happily welcoming these events. In Minnesota's Hennepin County Library System, these Drag Queen Story Hours now occur regularly. On October 17th, one such story hour was occurring in the Ridgedale Public Library in Minnetonka. The drag queen, who called herself Sasha Soda, walked in with high heels, a pink skirt, and a shirt that exposed his midsection. According to an attendee, the drag queen strode suggestively past the children, sitting down in a chair before several preschool-age girls with his legs spread wide, exposing his nylon-covered crotch in front of the children sitting at eye level. First off, why the double standard? In any other setting, if an adult exposed their crotch to children, they'd be in jail. Our politicians should get Drag Queen Story Hour out of the libraries. If that means cutting the library's funding, then so be it. It isn't just Sasha Soda who's problematic. A brief search of various Drag Queen Storytime performers reveals a consistent trend of both highly sexualized and ghoulish outfits. One performer, pictured, has about 5 white horns with red tips on his head. And don't for one second think that Drag Queen Story Hour will stop here. If left unattended to, Drag Queen Storytime will soon be in the public schools. It's also a mistake to think that this issue is confined to Drag Queen Storytime and not see the big picture. Across the country, child drag queens are a growing phenomenon. Desmond is amazing as an 11-year-old boy who's received glowing media attention despite clear and convincing evidence that his parents are financially profiting from his exploitation. How on earth does an 11-year-old decide to be a drag queen without heavy adult manipulation? These child drag queens do suggestive shows in front of adult men in bars as the men sip their drinks and watch. Where is child protection?
Yes, where is Child Protection Services? When parents tried to speak up in disagreement about the Drag Queen Story Hour at the Hopkins Library, they had police and uniformed security ready to remove them, to remove the parents. It's the drag queens that should have been removed. Morality is being turned on its head. Ex-drag queen Peter Benjamin, an ex-trans drag queen, tells parents that being exposed to cross-dressing at a drag queen show when he was 10 years old started his addiction to cross-dressing. Parents need to listen to his warning. He said, "Today, when I see and hear of books being read to children in schools, such as 10,000 Dresses, I see the same influence that led me to this harmful addiction." He said he never thought about being a girl until he was taken to this drag queen show. Moore Ehrlich, I don't know if you've heard of him, he's the creator of a children's show called Says Me, S-E-Z. And in this show, they teach children that LGBT is awesome. And in a recent article, he talked about how quickly a child can be influenced to accept drag. There was a 5-year-old little boy who came in and had learned things at his church, and he had learned that gay was not good and that boys should not dress like girls. And this is what he says about how they were able to change this little boy. He said, this kid that 45 minutes ago had a real issue with drag queens and a boy wearing a dress because he heard some things in church. 45 minutes later, this kid is ready to be on screen with a drag queen. You see how dangerous this is. Drag queens are deliberately grooming children to accept cross-dressing and LGBT ideology. What does God say about cross-dressing? Deuteronomy 22:5 has a stern warning. A woman must not wear men's clothing, nor a man wear women's clothing. For the Lord your God detests anyone who does this. That's Deuteronomy 22:5. In a recent licensed professional clinical counselor, in a recent interview with him, John Euler, he has worked with over 4,000 sexual predators, and this is what he says. Drag Queen Story Hour constitutes the greatest grooming program ever devised. He asks, why are these men dressed in women's underwear and drag wanting greater access to children? And he states, predators are using the Drag Queen Story Hour as a test to find out the degree of resolve of that community. And if it's easy pickings, trust me, predators are going to begin to flock to that community. Drag queens are exposing vulnerable, innocent little kids to demonic and cross-dressing identities. Now, children have a natural aversion to these kinds of frightening characters because this is the stuff of nightmares. Children have within them what has been described as kind of a God-given creep meter. And this is what keeps them safe and keeps them away from strangers and scary people. But drag queens are breaking down the natural fear of things that children should be afraid of. They are convincing kids and adults to doubt their instincts. Listen to the warning from an unexpected source, drag queen Kitty Demure, who tells mothers not to bring their children to these drag shows.
Hi everybody, this is Kitty Demure, your friendly favorite conservative drag queen. Anyway, I have another message for heterosexual women, the ones who have children. I have no idea why you want drag queens to read books to your children. I have no idea. What in the hell has a drag queen ever done to make you have so much respect for them and admire them so much, other than put on makeup and jump on the floor and writhe around and do sexual things on stage? I have absolutely no idea why you would want that to influence your child. Would you want a stripper or a porn star to influence your child? It makes no sense at all. A drag queen performs in a nightclub for adults. There is a lot of filth that goes on, a lot of sexual stuff that goes on. And backstage, there's a lot of nudity, sex, and drugs. Okay? So I don't think that this is an avenue you would want your child to explore.
Kitty Demure concludes by saying, don't ruin your child's life because that's what you're doing by taking them to drag shows. These are pretty powerful words from a drag queen himself. Shame on the parents who bring their children to these story hours with the drag queens. And shame on our libraries for allowing drag queens to be around children and read harmful books to them. Keep in mind that the public libraries are tax-supported governmental entities, and they are misusing our tax dollars to harm the innocence of children. The well-funded nonprofit American Library Association is behind this event, and under the guise of education, the ALA has become an agenda-driven organization used by wealthy leftist elites to disseminate poisonous ideologies to sexualize America's children and attack the traditional family. I'm going to just take a look now so you can see one of the transgender books and the kind of information that's being read to kids and that's in the schools and the libraries. This is called It Feels Good to Be Yourself. And it's a typical example of what they will be teaching the children. This one talks about your different kinds of friends in school, so we'll just look at a few pages. This is Ruthie. She's a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone that she's actually a girl. Girl is Ruthie's gender identity. This is Ruthie's friend, Alex. Alex is both a boy and a girl. When Alex was born, everyone thought Alex was a girl, but Alex is both boy and girl. This is Alex's gender identity. This is Alex's friend, JJ. JJ is neither a boy nor a girl. Ever since JJ was very little, they never felt exactly like a boy or girl. They just felt like themselves. This is JJ's gender identity. Did you notice the incorrect use of pronouns? The word they can now be used for more than one person, for just one person. This book is toxic and will make children sick. It is not even tethered to biological reality. Here's another page showing a newborn baby. And it says, see, when you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were or how you felt. They looked at you and made a guess. Maybe they got it right, maybe they got it wrong. Is that what doctors do? They look at the baby and they just make a guess? Maybe they flip a coin. When you step into a world of delusion, it's like Alice in Wonderland stepping into that mirror where there is no end to the nonsensical things that you will be forced to accept. Once you reject reality, all logic is gone, and children are left in a world of confusion. A young child can understand that if you have boy body parts, you are a boy. And if you have girl body parts, you are a girl. But they are developmentally incapable of thinking and understanding in the abstract. They cannot wrap their minds around the false concept that if a boy thinks he is a girl, maybe he is one. This is extremely harmful to the emotional development of a child, and that is why we are seeing an epidemic of gender confusion in schools today. It's like a moral coronavirus that's spreading rapidly through society, and if this doesn't stop, we will see a generation of mentally ill students in the future. Classrooms and libraries are not places where sexual identities should be discussed with children, ever. This is the book I wrote as an antidote to the transgender books for kids. It's called Just Ducky. And it's about a little duck who thinks he is a rooster and how he learns to be content with the way he was made. This book is endorsed by Dr. Michelle Cretella, the executive director of the American College of Pediatricians, who is speaking at the conference tomorrow. And she says, this is without question one of the best picture books conveying a much needed message. Love your body and be who you were created to be. At a time when children are being taught confusing messages about identity, this book is just what the doctor ordered. All of the proceeds, 100%, go to the Child Protection League so that we can continue to do the work that we do to protect kids. This book would make a great gift for your children or for your grandchildren, and donate one to your public library. We cannot just give up and let the drag queen story hours at public libraries continue, because they are starting to move into the schools. On February 24th, a first grade class in a public school in Brooklyn, New York, will host a drag queen story hour for their students to enhance inclusiveness and diversity. The drag queen is going to read LGBT books to the children and teach gender fluidity to first graders. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. To not do something is to just hand our children over to them. It is worth every ounce of energy and strength that we can muster to protect our children from the drag queens, to prevent this dangerous agenda, and to persevere. They can only promote perversion as long as we allow it. Thank you.